Saddle up your horses.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, we are finally here. We are finally here.
So close.
It is a day away. It is a day away from the NFL draft. And I'm gonna try and tug my dad's arm because every single year we try and watch draft day. At least before the NFL draft. And granted, you may hate the movie, you may love the movie. It feels like a annual tradition. You have to see draft day either a day or a couple days before the NFL draft. So I mean, do you have any like draft day traditions, Brandon?
The only one that's like a tradition at this point kind of is like a buddy of mine and I, we both make a 1-round mock and then send it to each other an hour before and just see who wins. We used to do it like,
one, by the way.
We used to do it. Huh?
I was going to say not counting this one.
No, I thought about using this one, but then I went back and looked at it and I was like, I regret so many things. But anyway, and we used to do it because like he used to live in Colorado where we would like the loser has to buy the winner a beer, but he lives like in Oklahoma now. So it's kind of hard, but we still do it.
Yeah.
And we do trades. So it's always a shit show and no one is even remotely close. But basically we do it points based on if you did a trade and you got the trade right, you get a point. If you get the pick right, you get a point. If it's like the right player but the wrong team, you get like half a point or something. I don't know, but it's fun.
Yeah. Again, and we want to remind everybody that for people that are commenting on X or Twitter, you guys can do so. Gone are the days of, Periscope where you really couldn't comment, right? You couldn't comment. So we are happy to have the people in the chat, and it looks like we have
an entire pot of chicken or bucket of chicken. I'm sorry, I'm jealous.
No. I visually picture Balboni having like a pot, not a bucket, a pot. Of chicken, almost like
he specifically said a bucket.
No. But I'm just saying
KFC bucket.
I'm just saying in general. Like I feel like he would be the kind of guy maybe that has a pot of chicken. Almost like what is it? It's the scene in Dodgeball, right? It's the scene in Dodgeball with Ben Stiller.
Okay, hold on. Speaking of Dodgeball, I have to say this because I just learned this today and this blows my mind. Have you ever seen Heavyweights?
Yes.
Apparently, Ben Stiller's character in Heavyweights is supposed to be the father of his character in Dodgeball, really? Canonically.
Interesting.
I just learned this today. I have no idea if this is true, but that would blow my mind.
That is actually pretty incredible.
I have to go watch that movie again. Yeah,
Heavyweights for anybody.
It's very.
That has never really seen it.
Yeah.
I would say it is definitely it's definitely I don't want to say it's an acquired taste, but it's like
I don't think you could make that movie in 2024.
You definitely cannot. But I will say if you are very diehard Mighty Ducks fans, like the Mighty Ducks of like the Gordon Bombay era, like D1, D2. You will like some of the cast of characters on there, specifically maybe the first Mighty Ducks, because there's a character there who I actually think is the main character. The main character was like one of the guys in the very first Mighty Ducks movie. So, but great movie, fantastic movie. Actually, it's one of the more underrated movies of the 90s. Which the 90s had put forth a lot of great, movies in the 90s. Heavyweights was one of them.
Yeah. I was so tempted to say The Replacements were my favorite movie of the 90s, but they came out in 2000. So,
like early 2000s?
No, literally in 2000. The year 2000.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just missed it by that much. But I went back, and speaking of the 90s, I'm getting way off topic before we get into this. Have you ever seen Batman Beyond? Did you watch Batman Beyond? when you were a kid, like younger?
I got into it more and more now with HBO Max, and so I've been.
Oh, it's so good. I watched it when I was a kid. I forgot how good it was, and I went back and I watched it recently. I started watching it like last Saturday, and I've seen like almost the entire first season. That is a 90s show, but it's good.
Well, I'd say
it's so 90s.
I'm personally a Batman the Animated Series, but I love
it's like a spiritual successor, kind of.
Yeah.
Rip Kevin Conroy.
Yeah. Best Batman, by the way. We're not going to put any qualifications on it, but Kevin Conroy is the best.
100%.
Batman.
Even as just the voice, it's kind of insane.
All right. How would you describe this first round mock?
When I was making it made sense, and now I look at it again, it doesn't make sense. But it was fun. It was fun. I'll say fun is my description of this mock. There were some picks that like I'm sticking with, but there were some picks like this is. Let me just say this. This is why making mocks, one, is so fun, but also two, like I understand the people mock drafts get a lot of hate. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of stupid and unwarranted because it's just something fun to do. But I kind of understand why, because like you do a mock and then within less than 24 hours, you have information that comes out that changes every possible thing that you did and makes it all incorrect. That's what makes it so fun.
Yeah.
So I'll say it was fun, but it was definitely like there's some picks that look back at it now. I'm kind of like, And not that it was a bad pick. It's just like, I don't think that's what happens now. But it was fun.
I was going to say, like, it's rough in the front and, or it's chaos in the front, stable in the back. Is that probably the best way to maybe to say it? It's chaos in the back, maybe a little bit more stable, as we close things out. Is that probably the best way to say it?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like, I think it's more some specific trades. We'll get into it, but it was a fun mock. You never know what happens. That's all I'm going to say. Like, this could be wildly wrong. This could be 100% correct, which I doubt. But
yeah,
things happen every year. Let me just say this: the process of going through this mock just brings into perspective something I already believe, but like when you make a mock like this, it just brings it out more. There's so many good players that people fall. People are going to fall the second round that should not fall the second round. People are going to get taken in the first round that shouldn't be taken in the first round. Like, it's just insane. You never know. There's 60 first round players, like, especially just considering what you hear all the time leading up to the draft. Like, oh, they're not going to be there at this pick, but you hear that like 60 times, only 32 picks. Right. And this just kind of like epitomizes that for me, because there's players that I look at this board and I'm like, how is this player still available? And there's players that weren't even taken. And I'm like, I can make a case that this person is taken. It's insane.
There were actually some cases where, as we were going through with this draft, you're like, wow, this player lasted till this particular era.
Oh, there was some definitely people that fell. Yeah. It was wild.
I feel like one of the best cases is like whenever you kind of tell yourself, not just this mock, but just any mock, like, these are the 15 best prospects overall in the draft. And then you start going through and then you look at it from just the overall process, and then you start looking at it from versus the team needs versus BPA, and you're like, it's what you said, like to your point where it's like there are players that will legitimately drop, like and I think in the real world it's what makes the scenario of like Brock Bowers and Romeo and almost said Rome Odunze.
Romeo Odunze.
Yeah, he's the love of my life.
Nice. Yeah.
He's the love of my life, apparently.
Wow.
At 12. Romeo Odunze at Pick 12. All right. Should we, by the way, Matty is not here tonight. So we are both Brandon and I will control his picks. I will control the first one because Matty had
the most controversial pick that no one understands what is going to happen. No one knows.
Yeah, he had the most controversial pick. Let's get to some comments, by the way. Gives a shout out. We did see Balboni. Looks like Landon is in the house. He was there last week, obviously, for the Mike Kliss show. Big Mike, per usual. Formerly a Greg Dulcich fan, now a Quinn Miners fan.
Hold on, real quick. Big Mike, which Greg Dulcich or I'm sorry, or Quinn Miners. You could have gotten either one. Which Quinn Miners new jersey did you get? Like which color? The white one?
It's a very important question to ask. And also we have Huncho in the building. And that was back when we were talking about the the heavyweights and the Fab and Beyond and everything like that. So
it does feel like Christmas Eve. Navy, dude. People are unfairly hating on the new dark navy. I like them. I don't know why people don't like them. I like them.
Midnight Navy, man.
Yeah, they're like, sweet.
I'll tell you,
dark. It's dark like my soul.
My dad will tell you he's actually sitting like right in front of me, but like he'll tell you I'm a big like Midnight Blue fan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you see my Forerunner, Brandon.
It's midnight. Like yeah, your car, yeah,
like the Forerunner that I have is midnight, midnight blue. Like I love the midnight color, so I've always been a huge fan of it. What's up, Bronco in VA? What's up, man? It really is Christmas Eve.
Feels like Christmas Eve
with the NFL draft. You ready?
Go for it. Let's do it.
All right, let's get started. And we will get started with the mock here. You won't see us on the screen, but obviously we are present. But it's worth noting that the the Chicago Bears are on the clock, and I think it's pretty easy to understand, where things are going, right, Brandon? So
no one knows.
So cue the music. With
that sound right now, it's making me feel things.
With the first overall pick.
All right. You gotta stop it now.
Hey, what? All right. With the first
too many times.
What's too many times? What? You can't.
Don't do it again.
All right. It's asking me to force a trade. Let's see here. I don't want to force a trade.
Can't you just start the draft?
All right. So here we go. We will take Caleb Williams. Shocker, ladies and gentlemen.
That's never happening. No one knows who the first pick is going to be. I mean, obviously, this is the gimme. Okay, so the way that for anyone who didn't join us, I think we've done this the same time every year. But if you weren't around when we did this last year, the way that we kind of handle this is we split the picks up. So Matty had the first one, although obviously he's not here, so Cam did that for him. I am role playing as the new general manager of the Washington football team. I'm just going to say that because it's funny. Adam Peters came over from the 49ers. I don't know if I like my job yet because, it's Washington, but this to me is the second, like, kind of give me pick in the draft. Like, Caleb Williams, obviously the first, like, just is obvious. Washington is just flashing lights and just telegraphing like we're picking Jaden Daniels, just based on everything that you've heard. It's kind of funny too, like maybe he doesn't want to go there because they did. Apparently, they had some kind of. I still don't know the details of this, but they had like obviously a meeting with the quarterbacks, but it wasn't individual. They brought in multiple quarterbacks at once, and I guess
same day
he didn't like it. Yeah, the same meeting, like they were there together.
It was so toxic.
I read that he went to like Topgolf.
It feels so toxic to me.
That just is weird. You have literally a person you might take in the second pick of the draft that's going to potentially alter your franchise, and I would want to just sit down in a room with them and take all the time I can.
Right,
you're going to take in the Topgolf,
or just one person.
With one person, like it just seems kind of weird to me.
And instead with like,
well, apparently, like that's a thing that he carried over from. I carried over from the 49ers. They did that in San Francisco, not with quarterbacks, other positions, which is pretty shocking to me. So, but anyway, this is the gimme pick. I'm taking Jaden Daniels.
Wait. Can I cue the music?
Just only do it one time. There you go. We're taking Jaden Daniels, quarterback from LSU. I mean, look, this is... I'm going to be able to, come in here. I'm a rookie general manager. Even though I have a defensive-minded head coach in Dan Quinn, I have the opportunity to take the reigning Heisman winner. I'm going to take it. Hopefully, Commanders fans are able to be somewhat happy now. You got rid of your horrible owner. You kind of got through the name change, and now you get hopefully a potential franchise quarterback. So have fun with that. But Jaden Daniels, I mean, this to me is the obvious pick, so I'm taking it.
Gonzo saying, "Wow, shocker at number 1." Obviously, he's trolling, but yeah,
it's a shocker. It's completely insane that happened.
Shocker. What's up, D-Rock? The time is nigh. I love that. Looks like a Broncos and VA said he did one earlier where McCarthy went first overall. Could you imagine the chaos?
No, I can't imagine it.
Well, speaking of chaos,
that's insane.
Speaking of chaos,
all right, let's do it.
The New England Patriots. There's been some speculation as far as what they could possibly be doing, and they decide to trade with the Minnesota Vikings. They decide to trade with the Minnesota Vikings for 11-3.
Just force it if they don't take that.
And look at that. The Minnesota Vikings.
I'm back. We're back here. I had the Vikings. We're back on the clock. Here's the thing. Obviously, you've heard, everyone and their mother has heard at this point, unless you've been hiding from the new quarterback in Denver, in which case she might not have heard, has heard the Vikings love and want to go up and get JJ McCarthy. But recently, it just feels like I've heard a lot more about their ties to a different quarterback that I'm going to be taking here in Drake May from UNC.
Oh my goodness. You tease it automatically. I can't even cue the music.
I did it on purpose. I wanted to troll you. But
oh my goodness.
Before you, I'm not going to put the pick in yet, so you can still get to play the music. But I'm going to just preface this a little bit. So obviously, again, you've heard the JJ McCarthy rumors. It just feels to me like with the way that Minnesota is set up moving forward here, going into this next year, you have an elite wide receiver 1 in Justin Jefferson. You can make the case there'd be too many JJs if they took JJ McCarthy. Just kidding. But you have an elite wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. If you're going to go up there and take a risk on, the reason I say Drake May is a bit more maybe of a risk is I'd say he has maybe a lower floor but a higher ceiling than someone like JJ McCarthy. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to take the guy with the tools, the high ceiling, you're going to go out there and you're going to throw the dart, if you will, and take a risk and maybe have a huge reward and get the payoff. You want to put him in a situation where he's going to be able to have the opportunity to succeed. And I can't possibly think of a better situation in terms of pass catching talent for Drake May to go into than Minnesota, obviously with Justin Jefferson. I know there was some kind of issues with like him. He got injured and then he didn't really want to stick around. But I think also you kind of show Justin Jefferson that you're serious about this franchise and you want to get back to winning football games, and you have the opportunity to go get him a franchise quarterback, and it just helps raise all boats. So I'm going to let Cam play the music.
All right.
And I'm going to take Drake May. Fun fact, Drake May also was coached in high school by the Vikings' current quarterback coach, Josh McCown. So there is a connection there in the coaching staff as well.
There is. And I mean, for me personally, I really feel like it's been Drake May all along. Like, I mean,
it was Agatha all along. It was Drake May all along.
It was Drake May all along. Because I mean, like, if you actually even look at it too, they brought in Darnold, right? They brought in Darnold. May and Darnold do somewhat have similar skill sets, right? And even if they feel like they're very comfortable rolling with a guy like Sam Darnold for 1 year, May has been a guy, even despite trading up to 3, a guy that maybe it feels like maybe wanting to sit for a year, right? Although trading up would suggest that they want to start him day 1. But the point is they got their guy. You can allow him possibly to sit for a year. And then you roll the dice and you go forward. And I think that one of the better things for the Minnesota Vikings, given this scenario, is the fact that they didn't have to give up Justin Jefferson in this kind of scenario, right? In a big kind of trade like this, sometimes you would think that they have to give up a really big asset, right? They got to get rid of a really big asset with a guy like Justin Jefferson, who it's pretty obvious wants a really new deal, wants a fresh new deal, and probably a pretty good quarterback too. So, but yeah, so I think that regardless if May is at pick 3 or he's later on in the draft, I feel like Drake May is just destined to be a Minnesota Viking, kind of regardless. So like even if the rumors are true that he's dropping, or some of the smoke that we're hearing that he's dropping, it feels like he's just gonna be that kind of guy for the Vikings.
And to be clear here, before we get to the next pick, real quick, and I talked about there's some picks that looking back on it now, I'm like, I don't know about that. Looking at it now, with what we've heard, I still think this pick is Drake May. I just think that New England keeps it. The reason I originally did the trade to go up as New England is like New England to me. Obviously, yes, they need a quarterback, but you have a brand new. You have a brand new into everything. Really, you lost the greatest. Obviously, you lost the greatest quarterback of all time. That it's not new, but you also lost the greatest coach of all time. You have a new rookie coach replacing him. I don't know if that guy wants to come in and immediately hitch his wagon to the very first quarterback that he's going to be working with, then the very first pick that he's going to have an opportunity to give input on for this organization. And I think he might want to instead trade down, be able to acquire some more assets, build some more of the team up around whoever they might decide to take as their franchise quarterback, and not be immediately pigeonholed into, well, what if he doesn't love any of these guys and he has to basically hitch his career to him? I don't know if he'd want to do that, but you never know.
Yeah. All right. So now this is where we get into the chaos. And when we say chaos, it's complete and utter chaos. That's probably the best way to say it, Brandon, because the Tennessee Titans do something that is incredible. They will make a trade with the Tennessee the Titans. The Titans and the Cardinals will be merging together on a trade. And according to Matty, in how he orchestrated the trade here, is that they are going to be trading picks 4 and 104 to Tennessee for 7, I believe, right? And I guess we could just force the trade on that one. But the point is that like
he has the Cardinals trading down with Tennessee as the Tennessee Titans trading up. Yeah. I have thoughts about this. I don't see the Cardinals. Here's the thing. It could happen because I don't think the Cardinals want to trade down very far. So if they get an offer from the Titans, I think it kind of makes sense. I just think that the Titans are probably going to get outbid by someone else who's going up for a quarterback, but it is definitely a top-heavy tackle class, as we've heard, and some of the recent rumors is, and obviously that's the Titans' number one need, that there's going to be a lot of trades of people going up for tackles. So you know what's could happen.
And since I did, Caleb, why don't you go ahead and roll with this one? Because I'm with you. I personally feel like they're going to stay put, and they're probably going to be taking another tackle here, probably a Talise Fuaga or Fashanu or any of those other tackles. I feel like they're probably going to, or JC Latham, just feels like they're going to be staying put at that 7 and taking that tackle there at pick 7. But in Matty's vision here, the Titans went up, and who they go out and select here as we kind of cue the music.
With now the 4th pick, the Tennessee Titans are taking Joe Alt, the tackle out of Notre Dame. Here's the thing. Joe Alt, incredible tackle. Like, Matty's reasoning for this does make some sense. The Chargers are the very next pick at 5. A lot of people have them taking a tackle, and his explanation for why Tennessee would jump them in a trade is that they viewed the Chargers as their main competition for taking someone like Joe Alt. They want to jump up and ahead of them and secure their guy. Fantastic tackle. Like, he's going to be a stalwart on that offensive line for the next 12 years. So I have no problem with the pick at all. I don't know if I see the trade happening, but again, it's not outside the realm of possibility in a class like this where there's probably going to be a lot of phones ringing with people trying to get up and get their guy and tackle. It's a great tackle class. And if you can get any of these guys in the first round, you're going to get a starter that you can rely on for a long time. So Joe Alt is the pick here, and that's like the most Tennessee pick I could think of.
Yeah, and Landon, exactly. That was exactly both Brandon and our reaction to when Matty constructed this deal. Was like,
the only thing that surprised me was the trade. Other than that, that's the pick.
But Clayton, what's up, man? Make sure, absolutely make sure that you do what Clayton said and smash that like button. And if you guys are just joining us, we are doing a first round mock draft. Yeah, so again, make sure you tell your friends and share and retweet the show that's over here on the socials over at Manely Broncos or at Brandon Miller PO or even myself at Cameron Parker PO. Make sure you tell your friends that there's a first round mock draft going on over there on the MHRT network. I personally, before we go into the Chargers pick here, Brandon, I am with Big Mike here that there is just zero chance that Marvin Harrison Jr. is getting past 4.
Yeah, I see. Well, the only potential way I could see that happening, if the Cardinals keep the pick, yes, that's their pick. But could the Cardinals have the opportunity to trade down and get more assets if someone gets really, really greedy and wants to go up for a quarterback? If quarterback slides a little bit, potentially. Even then, I don't know exactly if the Cardinals would want to trade down. I think they have like 7 picks in the top 100. So their war chest is already stocked. And if I'm them, I'm taking Marvin Harrison. But yeah.
Well, Broncos and VA says, Brandon, you're back on the clock, that they would probably go tackle here. But Brandon, what say you?
All right, so I'm now the Chargers. I just saw Tennessee trade in front of me and take the tackle that I want. Let me preface this by saying I do think that they're probably still going to take a tackle. In this specific scenario, I saw that happen. Joe Alt was my number one guy. And I see Marvin Harrison Jr. slide past 4. That should not happen. And I know that I just got rid of all the players that basically my quarterback, Justin Herbert, has thrown half of his completions to in basically everyone that was on this roster, which is just sad. But basically, they got rid of, for anyone who wasn't following the Chargers, they traded Keenan Allen, they cut Mike Williams, they let Austin Eckler leave in free agency. That's like their entire offense. That's over 50% of the passes that Justin Herbert threw went to those 3 players. You have to give him some weapons. I'm sitting here now at 5, and I'm seeing a potential elite all-time wide receiver fall to me, and I don't see this happening again. Cue the music.
Get ready, Broncos country, to weep.
I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. Do I think this happens? Absolutely not. But in this case, I'm controlling the Chargers. I'm going to take him because he slid past me and the Titans jumped me and took Joe Alt. So this is just kind of like one example of how one trade can shake up everything. I still think they're probably going to take a tackle tomorrow. Don't get me wrong. But in this case, I have to give them Marvin Harrison Jr. I would hate the pick personally if this happened because I really do not want him in the AFC West, and I definitely don't want him catching passes from Justin Herbert, and I don't want Justin Herbert to get any more weapons.
Yeah.
But I just think that you can't pass him up, and this is a great tackle class. You can still get a tackle later on down the line. They're probably still going to take a tackle. We all know that Harbaugh, that's his thing. He literally talked about it in his opening press conference, asking about the offensive line, was his exact quote. But But again, he just got rid of over 50% of their offense, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is right there. I'm taking him.
Yeah. It's is he the best player?
Not accurate, but
is he the best player in the draft? There is a legit argument that he is the best player in the draft. And so the fact that the Chargers,
I think he's number 2, but he's up there.
Well, I'll tell you right now. I'm with you. I think the Chargers do go offensive tackle. I actually do think they take Alt here.
I would have taken Alt if he was there.
But yeah, I'm saying I think they take Alt. But I think that if you were to ask me what I would do, just from the objective viewership, I probably would have gone with Marvin Harrison Jr. if he was available. But again, I'm not a Chargers fan, and I don't like helping the Chargers as much as I can. So the fact that you at least stoop to that level, I kind of think less of you. I'm not going to lie that you decided to choose Marvin Harrison, to go to the Chargers to be with your love child, Justin Herbert.
Not sorry.
All right. So I am now finally on the clock. It took a little bit, but I am now able to make my own selection, which means that the New York Giants are on the clock. Now, the Giants have been speculating for months and months and months about doing QB homework and quarterback homework. And, when you really kind of boil it down, to a degree, it makes sense. But I feel like if there's really only one quarterback that is in the realm of possibility that a guy like that a guy like Dable would possibly even consider would be Drake May. And the reason why I say Drake May, his comparisons are exactly what we've been hearing to a guy like Josh Allen, right? And so it would make a ton of sense for Drake May to be the guy that is going to be paired up with Brian Dable. And of course, we've said it before that, Drake May needs a few years or a year to sit, right? So it would make sense to maybe have him sit under Daniel Jones, and then you roll you roll him out, you roll the red carpet out a year from now, and you get the chance to have him be your guy going forward. Well, the other reasoning too is why they maybe not go quarterback here. Well, they're kind of going into a little bit of a break it year, a make or break it year for some of the people on that coaching staff, regardless of even due to a couple years ago when the Giants made the playoffs, we're making a strong push of the playoffs, right? So it does kind of feel to a certain degree like a make or break it year for them. And they, aside from quarterback, there's a lot of moves to be made on that team. And what better person to add to that roster than Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to trade up for a quarterback. But I have seen a lot of reports recently today even come out that JJ McCarthy is not a great fit for the Giants. Malik Neighbors, who a lot of people even have as the number 1 wide receiver in the draft, even over Marvin Harrison Jr., gives them a true number 1 wide receiver. They desperately need weapons. Darren Waller is. Did he officially retire? I don't even know. But he's probably not going to be sticking around. I don't know if he officially retired, but he's probably going to be. They don't really have a fantastic wide receiver 1 that's kind of like their go-to elite weapon on that offense. And obviously they got rid of Saquon Barkley. So that entire offense is kind of like changing. They have Wan'Dale Robinson. He's smaller. They have Jalen Hyatt. He's smaller. Darius Slayton. He has some injury issues. Isaiah McKenzie is a Giant now. He's smaller. Yeah. They need that elite physical wide receiver 1, and Malik Neighbors, a good wide receiver.
He'd be a great wide receiver. And, and I wouldn't even put it past them still even adding a quarterback in this class, right? Spencer Rattler's, been thrown around. Michael Pratt's been thrown around, So, or maybe even giving him a guy like a Taysom Hill type project, right? Mobile quarterback, maybe like a Joe Milton, right? For the Giants, maybe to work with and develop a little bit. I wouldn't even be surprised about that later on. Landon mentions, why is Bo Callahan dropping? We'll get to possibly him as a prospect here in just a little bit. I believe you're back on the clock, correct?
It's another Matty pick, but I can handle it.
Yeah.
So in the trade of the Titans and the Cardinals are now back on the clock here. And you know what, Monte Austinfort, you're kind of playing a good game here, and you're kind of winning, because now I'm sitting here and another guy who some people probably have as the wide receiver one is still sitting here on the board, and I desperately need a wide receiver. Obviously, I had the opportunity to take Marvin Harrison Jr. I traded down. I got the 7th pick. I got some other picks later in the draft, and I still have the opportunity to take a fantastic wide receiver, and I'm ready to make my pick.
All right. We will cue the music.
So obviously I lost Hollywood Brown. He's now a Chief. So I'm going to take Rome Odunze. He's just so stupidly good. I can't imagine them not seeing him as a great replacement for Harrison, did I say Harrison? I'm thinking of the wide receiver I passed on for, Hollywood Brown, who was kind of my wide receiver one, but honestly, I think Rome Odunze could be a lot better than Hollywood Brown could be for Kyler Murray. I need to give him as many weapons as I possibly can. And I'm going to take Rome Odunze, who is also stupid good.
You know, I was actually kind of thinking about this. Now, granted, I still think the trade doesn't necessarily happen, but
no,
if there is a window for Rome Odunze to possibly be the guy over Marvin Harrison Jr., I feel like it would be this, to a degree, where I feel like maybe to a degree, some people maybe fall in line with comparisons and nostalgia comparisons. And one of the favorite comparisons for Rome Odunze is Larry Fitzgerald. And Larry Fitzgerald, of course, as everybody knows, is a Arizona Cardinal.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see
he's a Cardinal, to be honest.
Yeah, he is Mr. Cardinal. And so I could see maybe a decent chunk of the fan base, or a large chunk of the fan base, really clamoring for a guy like Rome Odunze, just because of that type of comparison. A guy that, you know, if there's really anything that you could really say about really any of these guys, any of these 3 wide receivers, is there's no weakness to really any of their games. And that's another case for Rome Odunze. I mean, his route tree is impeccable. He may be the best route runner of the 3. I mean, he's got incredible size. He can make the tough catches. Like, he is a great, great prospect. And it's because of the emergence of guys like Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze that a guy who was 1B at one point in the middle of the college football season may not be or could be a very early 2nd round pick, or maybe even a late 1st round pick in a guy like Keon Coleman, right? Because Keon Coleman was like that guy for like 1B. And because of the emergence of both of those players, like, he may not even go in, the 1st round, or maybe in the back end of the 1st round.
Yeah. Okay. I am now back on the clock personally, with Atlanta. To me, this is another fairly easy pick. You want to hear something insane that I didn't really know about until I did research on who I should take here? The Falcons have had the fewest sacks of any team in the past decade in the NFL. That's ridiculous to me. Like, that's actually insane. Who is their most recent, the most recent elite pass rusher you can think of that was on the Falcons? Because I can only think of one name.
I really can only think of one, and it would probably be Vic Beasley.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Vic Beasley. Vic Beasley is the last great edge rusher I could think of on the Falcons.
Define great, I guess.
I mean, a solid starter for them that gets production consistently. So they desperately need an edge player here. They have their pick of the litter here. They've obviously poured their resources into the offensive side of the ball. They signed Kirk Cousins. They've spent their last 3 first-round picks on offense. They have some wide receivers that are young and have potential. And even though obviously there's still some wide receivers available, there's really no one that I would want to take this high after those top 3 had gone. And so I'm going to take
there you go.
a player that I desperately need in my building.
It also feels like if you're going to maybe make a bet on what's a prediction you would make at draft day? This could be one of those type of
This
moves.
is not a hard pick for me. Like, this has been pretty telegraphed, in my opinion. I'm taking Dallas Turner, the edge rusher out of Alabama. Now, could I have taken Latu here? Sure. Some people view him as the best edge rusher in the class. Some people view Dallas Turner as the best edge rusher in the class. Some people still say it's Jared Verse. But I'm going to take Dallas Turner. He is just such an explosive athlete. He has 3 years of production to back up the my pick of him, and I can basically just slot him in on my defensive line. He's going to be my star pass rusher. He's going to be able to drag up this horrible sack total and lack of pressure that I've been able to generate for the past 10 years. You wonder why the Falcons have a notoriety of being a team that chokes. It's because they can't get any pressure on the quarterback that they're playing against. And when you don't give pressure, you don't pressure that quarterback, you're going to give them the opportunity to light you up and come back into the game and beat you, even though you were winning. So I'm going to take Dallas Turner from Alabama, and he's going to be my guy.
All right. So now that puts the Chicago Bears back on the clock at pick 9. They were able to successfully solidify 2 top 10 picks. They actually only have 4 or 5 picks this year in the NFL draft, but 2 of them.
They have 2 picks in the first round, and then the next pick is pick
75
70 something. Yeah.
The pick before Denver's, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Where are we going here? Do you feel like I feel like they could have gone a weapon here. They possibly, but it just feels like with Chicago, you added Keenan Allen, you have DJ Moore. You can make the case that maybe they actually don't really go to a certain weapon here, or do they go Brock Bowers? I know some people have been kind of pushing a little bit, maybe for a guy like a Brock Bowers, for Chicago. Well, if you're going to go strictly for the tight end label, you have Cole Kmet there, right? You have Cole Kmet there. So
they have 10 tight ends, don't they?
Yeah,
they have an insane amount of tight ends.
So if you're looking at it from Chicago's standpoint, and one of the things that they desperately do need to beef up would be that defense. And if you're looking at some of the better players that are available, there is no player that could arguably be a nice fit inside the top 10 as far as even being a guy that is, I should say, surging into the top 10, none other than Byron Murphy, the defensive lineman from Texas. I think that if you're, and as we're getting a little bit closer to, the, I want to say, the Broncos pick, Murphy, I think, is a very underrated Broncos pick for pick 12. I mean, if he's not taken, even by Chicago here, which we did at pick 9, he's flying under the radar a little bit, because I think a lot of people are focused on that edge position, or even, of course, that quarterback position. And so I just feel like, the interior defensive line, guys like Byron Murphy and a Johnny Newton or a Jerzon Newton, are kind of flying under the radar. And obviously Newton would be a trade back candidate. Murphy would more than likely be your pick at 12. So the Broncos, despite adding Malcolm Roach and despite, adding, some more defensive line, reinforcements, they still need a lot of help on that defensive line. And the more help you add on that interior, the more it will help out on that exterior as well.
Yeah, Byron Murphy going in the top 10 does not surprise me that much. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears took him at 9, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay.
He's an amazing pass rusher on the interior.
Now, we are officially at the New York Jets position. There has been so much speculation about them going into a million different directions. Could they go Brock Bowers? Could they go possibly an offensive line? Could they even, talk about, maybe going with a quarterback, right? Going with a quarterback and maybe having him be the understudy, much to the chagrin of what the Green Bay Packers used to do, right? The Green Bay Packers would do with guys like, when Aaron Rodgers replaced Brett Favre, and of course, when Jordan Love now has replaced, Aaron Rodgers. What could they possibly do then? I don't know, maybe trade with the Denver Broncos once again. And so the Broncos will be trading pick 12, 121, and a future third for pick 10 and 111. Meaning, why does this mean that the Broncos are going to be trading up? Well, because I don't think the Denver Broncos ever foreseen a scenario where quarterback would actually be available, or let alone the quarterback that they want to be available. And some people feel like he is maybe the best fit all along with Sean Payton, and that would be none other than JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy, come on down. You are officially a Denver Bronco. The Broncos will, in fact, take their quarterback of the future in JJ McCarthy. Obviously, there is so much, so much to be said. And, I tell you, I was talking to a few people today, Brandon. Obviously, they traded for Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is...
That means nothing to me.
It means nothing. However, I wonder if just a conversation starter was not just acquiring Zach Wilson, but the possibility of even talking to the Jets at pick 10 in terms of a trade up, because just in the sheer happenstance that McCarthy falls, to this area, and of course the New England Patriots dropping back, because there's a lot of speculation even, that they take a quarterback despite even trading back, right? That maybe the Broncos drop in, right? Or drop and trade up, if you will. Because I think the thing that makes this, I was going to say, I think that what makes this fascinating is, again, if you're talking an ideal trade of giving up assets for a guy like JJ McCarthy or your quarterback that you really want, the ideal scenario is for you to be trading up between that 7 and 10 slot, right? That 7 and 10 slot. And because we're actually at this point now with 10, McCarthy's there, and the Broncos were able to take advantage. And my question for you, Brandon, and I'll send it off to you: is he a sit guy year one, or do you start him day one?
No, you start JJ McCarthy day one.
Okay.
Day one. I mean, obviously, you make the whole show if he's gonna, play for the starting gig in camp, and he's gonna push the other guys in the room. And obviously, we just traded for Zach Wilson, and that's stupid. That's completely just coach speak, PR. You don't want to act like you handed it to him. JJ McCarthy's your starter. You trade up for him. You trade the 10. I love this scenario, because to me, this scenario, and I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if this happens in the sense of, like, one of the quarterbacks falls, someone we like, we're trading up for him, we're being aggressive, but we're not having to give up an arm and a leg to go up to 3. We're able to trade up like just a couple spots. It's cheaper. We're able to get our guy.
Right.
JJ McCarthy fits what Sean Payton likes to do.
Yeah, and I think that,
I don't hate it.
I think, again, we have to also, and I know, Rich, I love you, man. When you say, do not trade up, I'm with you, but I think when you look in the grand scheme of things of just from where there are between, picks 12 and picks 10, like, the relative of trading up is far less cheaper than trading from 12 to 4 or 12 to 3. You know what I mean? So I just think that we have to look at it through that lens, because, like, you are officially almost evening out the idea of you actually giving up assets at that point because of the small trade up that you're going to be enduring at that point. So JJ McCarthy,
for any team that's ever traded up for a quarterback and that quarterback has hit, tell me what they gave up.
Mm-hmm.
No one remembers. No one cares.
In fact, actually, if you do recall, specifically, I think some of the assets that was given from 12 to 7 for Josh Allen wasn't actually as much as it is now. So
I don't even know what it was because no one remembers and no one cares because Josh Allen is a great quarterback and no one is looking back on it.
So anyway, should we stop?
That's the if on any quarterback you ever take.
Should we stop the mock now? Now that the Broncos got their pick, they got their quarterback of the future. Yeah. No, we're good.
So go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. So Sean Payton got his guy. He got his.
And that's the other thing. And even if you don't like trading up, that's the thing. Sean Payton's reputation is he's going to go after the guy that he wants. If he sees someone he likes, he's going to do whatever it takes and be aggressive to go get him.
Yeah. But yeah, I as far as
that trade was that was funny, but
as far as though Sean Payton gets his guy, he gets his guy to his quarterback that wears number 9. And if anybody remembers, there's a certain quarterback with the Saints who wore number 9. It was quite successful. So anyway, McCarthy is a Denver Bronco. Then that now puts the New England Patriots on the clock.
All right, so I just traded my picks down. I traded with obviously Minnesota. I just got jumped by Denver. I don't really care. I didn't need a quarterback. I mean, I need one, but I'm not going to take one. New England is just going to be – New England is rebuild mode. They need to rebuild that entire roster. Their offensive roster is – I think the best description I've seen of this, and I can't take credit for it because I read it somewhere. New England's offensive roster is offensive. Like, it's literally offensive to – football. They just need talent across the board. And after they lost Trent Brown, left tackle is already an incredibly valuable position. This is a great tackle class. That just makes left tackle even more of a glaring need. I know that there's way more that they need on that offense than just a left tackle, but this gives them the opportunity to try to build around whoever they're going to decide their next quarterback is. And I know who my pick is.
And with that pick,
with the trade down with the 11th pick, I'm taking Olu Fashanu from Penn State, a guy who for a very long time was known as the number 1 tackle in the draft. He's an incredibly athletic left tackle. That's someone that I desperately need. Again, I just lost my left tackle in Trent Brown. I'm rebuilding this roster. I'm rebuilding this offensive just identity of this team. And I'm going to take my franchise left tackle that I'm not going to have to worry about for the next 10 years. And now I can focus on everything else on the offense. I have more things to do, but I could take Olu and he's going to be my left tackle for the next decade.
That puts now the New York Jets on the clock. As we said, the Broncos and the Jets, I feel like was almost a conversation starter with the whole Zach Wilson trade to possibly get things, kick-started, if you will, for possible trade-up scenarios. If the Minnesota Vikings stay at 11 or if the New England Patriots are at 11, I feel like this is just a scenario for them to get started as far as possible trade-ups. Anyway, but the Jets are on the clock now at 12. Now, Brandon, I feel like, as I said, they could go a lot of different directions with this. They can go and add a weapon. Alan Lazard is frustrated. Their only true weapon at this point, it feels like, truly has been Garrett Wilson. And Randall Cobb is probably 75 years old now. He's getting older. He's a free agent. No idea if they even bring him back. They definitely do need weapons, but we know that this is a very deep playmaker-filled draft. We also know they upgraded that offensive line, as we said. However, when they upgraded that offensive line, they brought in a very good left tackle, but a old left tackle, an expensive left tackle for a 1-year, $20 million deal, right? Was it like as far as a very expensive 1 year? That being said, they will go with the route of building through the trenches, and if you are looking at it in terms of being on the clock, the New York Jets to take Talise Fuaga, the tackle from Oregon State. I love this pick because I actually feel like some people have kind of speculated, is he going to be a guard? Is he going to be a tackle? And I love the idea because, for them, like, say Tyron Smith is your future guy, or even or not future guy, but the guy you're going to roll with for a few years. You could roll
3 though. I'm not going to
what I mean?
Put all my eggs in that basket. So this is a good pick.
But I mean, like, you could possibly, roll Fuaga on the inside or something, maybe get him to play guard, because obviously the Jets offensive line as a whole needs a lot of work.
Oh yeah. If you're worried about Tyron Smith not being available and potentially losing him to injury, this is a great pick. If you think Tyron Smith is going to be your left tackle this year, and you're going all in for this year with Aaron Rodgers, who's obviously not getting any younger himself, Charlie Fuaga gives you a guy you can still put in on the interior right away and start him and get a great offensive lineman, a great player. You desperately need to do all you can to protect Aaron Rodgers, because the offensive line is literally what caused the complete and utter downfall of that team last year in 4 snaps. So they have to take someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Tyron Smith is old.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, that puts the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock. This was a Matty selection. Now, it feels like if you're looking at it, Morgan Moses, right? Morgan Moses is also getting older. So yeah, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, they desperately needed a tackle for that future and for the trenches. Obviously, Mekhi Becton's a free agent as well. Still, so yeah, they definitely really needed to build the trenches. Now the Raiders, the Raiders are on the clock here. Brandon, I can roll with this one. It feels like there's so much speculation being surrounded about the quarterback position, where they go, and possibly, like, what do they do? Because it feels like people, and granted, it's funny, we're using a Pro Football Focus mock. People at Pro Football Focus and one of the podcasts that I was listening to compared the Broncos to the Raiders of last year, because the Raiders were in this situation of darkness in terms of the quarterback position, but they go out and they got Jimmy Garoppolo, and it hit the bed. Like, it failed very, very miserably. So I could see them maybe necessarily taking the Broncos route, if you will, maybe trading back here. Oh, why do I say that? Why? It seems like we got the Philadelphia Eagles coming in. Is that what it is? We got the Philadelphia Eagles coming in, and trading up. I want to say it's for pick 13, 22, and it looks like it's 50 for pick 13. That is, and I think this is a scenario for the Philadelphia Eagles and even for the Broncos on a trade back scenario. It seems like a rather popular one for the Broncos, that if Philadelphia is going to be coming up here, they're going to be coming up for a corner. And what better corner to come up for than Cooper DeJean? No, not DeJean. We'll go with Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon Mitchell is headed to the state of brotherly love. He is headed to the Philadelphia Eagles. They desperately needed a corner.
Their secondary is atrocious.
Given everything that they've even had, they had a bunch of injuries even on that defensive line. But still, like, that secondary overall was really bad, even with the late addition of Kevin Byard. And Kevin Byard is not bad, but you're asking him for, to almost have patchwork for a half a season, and it's just never materialized even for him. And so, like, that secondary overall just needs a lot of work. And now you have the possibility of having Darius Slay and Quinyon Mitchell as your bookends, helps, if you will, for the formidable future.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add, to be honest. Like, this is a pretty no-brainer to me. I definitely think that the Philadelphia Eagles are probably going to try to trade up. They desperately need secondary help. There's some great cornerbacks that they can go up and snag here in this first round. And I definitely think they're going to trade up. They might even trade up with us, for all I know.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that mocked and rumored several times. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo, great corner. They desperately need a corner. They need anyone in that secondary. They need safety too, honestly. So yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. Now, Brandon, it seems like you've been very immune lately in being
Just
offensive tackle,
all my picks, man. All my
like
picks the same.
offensive lineman heavy. And it seems like for you, the New Orleans Saints are on the clock. Are we going that way?
Yeah. So the Saints, they're like the most obvious need of any team in the draft. Like their need at tackle is about as glaring as our need at quarterback. It's just so telegraphed at this point. And even picking here at 14, where so many tackles have taken, they still have been taken. They have the ability to still go and get a great one. And this has been kind of just like an embarrassment of errors on that offensive line in New Orleans. Trevor Penning, who they took in the first round 2 years ago, has been just atrocious at left tackle, and Ryan Ramczyk over on the right side has been great for them, but he's pretty serious knee injuries just continue to stick around. So they need both tackles. But thankfully, this is a class where that's a good need to have.
Yeah. So
I'm going to give them Troy Fontenot from Washington, who you can also argue is probably on some teams' boards is the best tackle in the class. He's just someone that they desperately need. He's a plug-and-play left tackle who has the versatility to also be able to play on the inside of the line if they need it. If for some reason Trevor Penning is able to turn it around, but they desperately need someone, and this gives them someone who can go in and replace Trevor Penning right away if he continues to just show that he's been kind of a bust, to be honest.
That puts the Indianapolis Colts on the clock. And they're a fun team. Because of Gardner Minshew, they really became a very entertaining group to look, to watch. Certainly, even with Anthony Richardson being very banged up in terms of his concussions and everything like that. They're a really fun group, and I'm very curious to see what they're going to be doing here. Do they go out and add a playmaker again? They extended Michael Pittman. They gave him a very big fat raise this offseason. So I'm very curious to see the overall direction, not tonight, but the overall direction of which they go. But what better person to add to this Indianapolis Colts roster than a joker? A joker at tight end. That means that the Indianapolis Colts will select Brock Bowers going to the Indianapolis Colts.
That's lower than I think he goes, but damn, that would be so much fun.
It's such
Richardson with Brock Bowers. Oh my God.
It's such a fun pick. And I actually can see, I can absolutely see the Colts doing this just in the simple, just having an exciting offense. Bowers with Anthony Richardson, with Michael Pittman, and even some of the sneaky tight end weapons that they already have, right? Like they have Ali Mo Cox. They have who was the tight end from Oklahoma State, who was really, really kind of a slept on tight end this last year. The name is kind of escaping.
From Oklahoma State?
Yeah. I think the name is kind of escaping me.
I can't think of who that is.
But a really decent tight end room. But now you give a joker, like a true joker now that you can truly use as that mixed match, that mixed match, weapon. Or maybe it was a couple years back. Luke Musgrave went to Green Bay, but I'm trying to think of
Jelani Woods.
Yes, Jelani Woods.
Jelani Woods. Yeah, he was that freak athlete that they took at tight end. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a fun room. It's a very, very fun room for sure.
Brock Bowers isn't a tight end. He's not offensive weapon.
That's why we say joker.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly
fine. One joker. He plays in Denver.
That's true. It is true. That's right. To anybody that is either a Milwaukee Bucks fan or no one that is not a Denver Nuggets fan in the chat, the true joker, of course, is is Nikola Jokic himself, the best quarterback in Denver still officially. even with the addition of JJ McCarthy. So next up on the clock, Brandon, is who?
All right. So this is another Matty pick, and he's definitely swinging for the fences in some of these. These are fun. These are spicy. So the Seattle Seahawks are on the pick here, on the clock here, and I honestly don't know what they do. This is definitely going to be one of those spots where I feel like it's difficult to be able to kind of project what they're going to do. Obviously, they have Geno Smith, who kind of fell off a little bit and hasn't looked as good as he did, and kind of is like his moment in the sun last year, or I guess 2 years ago at this point. They traded for Sam Howell, but I don't know how much they really believe in that, because that was like a pick swap. That was like very little that was given up. They could take someone on like the interior of the line. They could take someone on the defensive line, but Matty has them doing something that is neither of those things.
All right, cue the music.
So apparently with the next pick, the Seattle Seahawks are taking Michael Penix Jr. from Washington.
Michael Penix Jr. is staying.
He's staying in
Washington.
So they got an up close look at how good Michael Penix can be in their home state, and there's been a lot of buzz on Michael Penix recently. Like, I don't know if you saw that, yeah. But apparently, like, he seems to be the guy that people aren't talking about enough, and could go higher, or even in this first round, or even higher than people are potentially expecting. Yeah. So, this isn't too far-fetched, to be honest. I mean, they have that replacement for Geno Smith, and you don't have to hope that he goes back to that kind of one-year wonder. Like, the sample size on Geno Smith, unfortunately, is just incredibly small. And I'm not saying he didn't show things that are on tape look like they could be something that he can do consistently. Like, he had an amazing year, and he wasn't terrible last year. He just wasn't as good. And this gives them someone who has the arm talent to just explode, someone that they can kind of build around and have that potential replacement for Geno Smith the next couple seasons. The nice thing about this too is, like, obviously there's like the injury concern. There's also some of the, like, maybe he has a bit more development to kind of work on, and I don't think they would have to force him to be the starter. They can keep Geno for next year. They can keep Geno for the next 2 years. And this gives them some flexibility. But Geno Smith also is not getting younger. He's 33. So they're taking Michael Penix.
I mean, by the end of Michael Penix's first deal, he will be the age of Geno Smith. I'm kidding. But I think that...
Oh, yeah. I forgot about the Ryan Grubb connection.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting.
His entire staff, basically, if you will, or parts of his staff are basically going to be, down there at the Seahawks. So, yeah, and really, point, if there are so many questions regarding Penix, if you're really being honest, there's no team that would really understand him more, or staff that would understand him more, or coordinator that would understand him more than Ryan Grubb with the Seattle Seahawks. So it definitely does have some validity to it, and I wouldn't even be least bit surprised. The smoke that you're referring to in terms of this trade, the pick with Penix, is the Raiders. The Raiders at pick 13. I know that
the Raiders desperately want Jaden Daniels, but that's just not possible.
No, but it seems like they're a little bit infatuated with Penix, and I think that
there's definitely some smoke there.
But yeah, I can definitely see it to where maybe they but also I guess you hate to label things this way, but it does to a certain degree scream Raiders pick.
That is a very Raiders pick.
Yeah, but and not just that, and not even saying it's a Raiders pick, Brandon, but also, have you been hearing some of the smoke that has come out in the last 12 to 24 hours on another team? So some people even...
No, I haven't heard about that.
So some people even speculated that Michael Penix Jr. could go as high as 6 to the Giants. Does that also not?
Oh, I did see that. That's also such a Giants pick, though.
Exactly.
You know who else they took at 6? Their current quarterback.
The current quarterback. So
That should have gone at 6.
So that's the funniest thing to look at is like, oh man, that is such a Daniel Jones thing to do.
That's such a Giants thing to do.
Right. Or yeah, Giants thing to do is to take almost a Daniel Jones type of scenario.
It's the Daniel Jones scenario in the sense that it's a reach, to be honest. But I don't know if you could build a more opposite quarterback to Daniel Jones in a lab than Michael Penix.
Yeah.
So they're going the whole opposite direction. They're running far away from what they currently have, which, you know what, I can't blame them. But they did pay him, so they done messed up.
So this means that the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock now. And by the way, I actually have NFL Network on in the background, Brandon, and you'll be happy to know that maybe one of your picks could be right. Daniel Jeremiah has Troy Fontenot mocked to the New Orleans Saints.
They're about to have 2 that are right because I finally get to stop taking offensive tackles. I'm so excited. We were making this every single time I was on the clock. I was like, God damn it, I got to take another tackle. I was so tired of it.
So, with that.
All right. So, here's the thing with Jacksonville. They desperately need a cornerback. This is easily their worst position group on the team. Going into this offseason, pretty much their secondary was Tyson Campbell. And then they signed 30-year-old Ronald Darby. Everyone in chat here knows that because this is obviously a Broncos-centric podcast, how non-optimal Ronald Darby is, especially with, not that he's necessarily a bad.
He had a good year with the Raiders.
He had a good year, but very injury prone, and he's 30. So they desperately need help in the secondary cornerback, and this is something that even Trent Baalke, their general manager, has said that they need. So I'm gonna help him out.
All right. So what does that mean?
Play the music.
All right, here we go. As Deadpool says in Deadpool 1, cue the music.
All right. With the 17th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars are taking Terrion Arnold, cornerback from Alabama. I don't know what it is about this pick, but this has been mocked to the Broncos at 12 like 40 times because we just seem to have a thing for taking Alabama quarterbacks. And even though he is not Pat Surtain, I would not be surprised if a decent amount of NFL teams have Terrion Arnold as their number 1 cornerback in this class. He is 6 foot, 190 pounds, just super ball hawk who has the talent to just basically get out there and make plays happen, and just go after the ball and get interceptions. The downside is like he kind of has a little bit of a tendency to grab onto the guy that he's covering, but obviously he's still a college cornerback. He has plenty of tools that give him the ability to go into Jacksonville and be their Pat Surtain and be their leader in the secondary, the guy that can build that secondary around. They probably still need more help in the secondary, but this gives them a fantastic start. And even if it's not Terrion Arnold, if he's not there, I definitely see this being a corner. But he's there, and I'm gonna send him to Jacksonville. He doesn't have to pay income tax. I'm jealous.
That puts the Cincinnati Bengals on the clock. And boy, what a fascinating last, what should we say, 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours right now for the Cincinnati Bengals. Trey Hendrickson requesting a trade, and not only Trey Hendrickson, but T. Higgins requesting a trade. Bengals really just don't pay anyone. They really don't pay anyone, really.
Apparently not.
And I mean, they probably will pay maybe Jamar Chase and Burrow at some point. But if they don't, well, you're done messed up. And probably one of the ways that they can, right some of those wrongs, if you will, for some of that, I think would really be maybe a signal for them even moving on from a guy like T. Higgins. So the Cincinnati Bengals, I feel like there's a lot of ways that they can go. They can go with defensive line. I think I saw Daniel Jeremiah's recent mock that actually had them going Byron Murphy. So Murphy lasting all the way up until 18.
I saw that. That's wild.
But given just the current state of where things are, I think if you're looking at it from the Cincinnati Bengals, what better way? And if you are going to be, using Jamar Chase as your future, what better way to team him up with an LSU teammate, a guy who is risen up draft boards, a guy who frankly is between maybe that 12, the pick 12, idea, to the back, and that would be Mr. Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver from LSU, heading to the Cincinnati Bengals, teaming up with his LSU teammate, as I said, to Jamar Chase. Fun player. I think that he's fun. I think that if for Brian Thomas, he doesn't get as much love like Malik Neighbors.
I feel bad for Brian Thomas, man.
Yeah, I do too.
And just in this class, he gets pushed down the board, but in most other classes, he'd be right up there near the top.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the case for certainly a lot of these guys, but Thomas, he's a stretch the field wide receiver, but he does get slept on in terms of his physicality, and I think that him running that 4.35 at the 40, I think surprises so many people, or surprised so many people.
He's 6'4", 205 pounds.
Yeah, and he ran that in a 4.3. So
that's insane. Him and Jamar Chase would be lethal.
It would absolutely be lethal. And as I said, a move like that would certainly signal, them moving on from T. Higgins. And by the way,
not if we trade Cortland Sutton to him for a certain edge player.
Yeah,
defensive line player.
Would you do that? I kid you not.
Yes.
Not to make this into a Broncos thing here and topic for right now, but it just makes so much sense for both parties. Take the Brian Thomas stuff out of this for just a second. It just makes so much sense. You ship them Cortland Sutton. They get their wide receiver too. They will also have Sutton on 2 years. They will have Sutton for 2 more years. They aren't paying him for 2 more years. Then the Broncos can bring in an edge player who they desperately need a veteran presence on that edge. And there's no better player to bring in here than a 2017 draft pick, Trey Hendrickson. It makes just too much sense for the Broncos to add a guy like that into the room.
It does make sense. I don't think the Bengals have any intention of letting him go, which is going to be a risky move on their part because he doesn't want to stay there. But it makes sense.
Talk about a quiet sack producer. You know what? You actually know who he reminds me of to a certain degree. He's been far more consistent in his career than him, but he reminds me of Ryan Kerrigan with Washington. Remember how Kerrigan was?
Kerrigan was just hidden.
Kerrigan was so good with Washington. He was a very quiet sack producer. Yeah. Hendrickson is.
He had 17 and a half sacks last year.
It's 17 and a half sacks, and no one will talk about it really. Like he's such a quiet, and productive sack producer.
That's a great comparison, actually.
All right, so
Ryan Kerrigan is so underrated.
Going on forward to the Los Angeles Rams. What are we feeling?
All right, so this is another Matty pick.
I was going to say some people feel like it's a Bo Nix pick.
What?
I was going to say some people feel like it's a Bo Nix pick.
I know, but I don't understand the joke.
Well, that's not a joke. I'm just saying some people feel like it's a Bo Nix pick because of the relationship that I believe.
Oh, that they would take Bo Nix?
Yeah, that they would take.
Oh, I've never seen that. Who said that?
So I think Les Snead has a relationship with Nix's dad, and so
I've never heard this.
And so people feel like if
I thought you were saying that it'd be like a trade down for us.
No,
we take Bo Nix.
But if you do trade down, the Rams are a very scary team. That the Broncos should be wary of because of the simple fact that if they were to want to take Nix,
yeah,
wow,
that's news to me. Anyway, so obviously Aaron Donald retired, and that left a just massive void in the middle of the defensive line for the Rams. Matty has this pick locked in.
Actually feels like such a it is definitely a Matty selection, I will say that. But it actually is
this makes sense.
It's a really solid pick.
All right, Matty has the LA Rams taking Jerzon Newton, the interior defensive lineman from Illinois. We already talked about, obviously, them needing to replace Aaron Donald, and again, like pretty much almost impossible to do. Also, just good luck to whoever has to go in there and actually replace Aaron Donald. But in terms of putting another super disruptive force on the middle of that defensive line, Jerzon Newton is definitely a guy that can do that. Just super athletic, fast, powerful pass rusher. Like, that's his thing. He is a pass rush specialist on the interior of that defensive line. And if you're going to try to replace Aaron Donald, you might not be able to replace him against the run as much, but if you're trying to at least get similar production in terms of pressure, Jerzon Newton is going to give you a guy who can definitely keep that energy going in LA and keep offensive linemen and opposing offensive coordinators terrified.
And it just makes too much sense, because I mean,
very LA Rams pick.
And actually, there's people who feel like Newton is a Donald-ish player. I mean, like,
I've seen the comparison.
Like, as far as some people that feel like, how disruptive he is, and especially and frankly, I personally think, I know so much has been made about Jared Verse and a trade back. Newton is not talked about enough as far as a trade back candidate that the Broncos should even target.
Yeah. We could take Byron Murphy at 12. I'd be happy.
Exactly. Now, the quarterback one, Russell Wilson led Pittsburgh Steelers, and just
oh boy,
are on the clock.
Pittsburgh is so weird, man. They obviously signed Russell Wilson. They traded for Justin Fields. I don't know what the hell Pittsburgh is doing. They also traded their team leading receiver in Deontay Johnson this offseason. I think they traded him, right? Or maybe he was released.
They traded him.
They traded him for a corner.
They traded him to Carolina.
Yeah, they traded him to Carolina. Just a fascinating team to see what they're gonna do here. But another team that desperately needs some help on the offensive line. Their left tackle is on an expiring deal this year, and there's some tackles left on the board here, so I am ready for this pick.
Yeah, so Deontay Johnson, as we said, moves on to Carolina. The Steelers need a tackle.
You're not wrong, Glenn. It was a culture move, but it does kind of leave quite the void. But I'm not going to take a wide receiver. I think they're going to be able to find a replacement for him later on down the line. So, yeah, I'm not saying that the trade didn't make sense. It definitely did, but they just have some retooling to do on that offense in general. And I don't know what they're going to do next year, but I think it's going to be interesting. But we're going to start by taking J.C. Latham out of Alabama. So this is a guy that people have recently mocked a lot to the Chargers. And yes, he is technically a right tackle, and they need a left tackle because they are about to lose their left tackle. But J.C. Latham himself, first of all, J.C. Latham has the athleticism to play at left tackle, and he himself, knowing how much the league values the left tackle position specifically, has actually asked teams to try him on the left side of the line. Like, he is asked to play as left tackle, and I think he could do it. So I'm going to have them take J.C. Latham. This is someone, again, that people have mocked going as high as 5 to the Chargers, which would also make perfect sense to me. And he could stay at right tackle with them. He's just a massive mountain of a human being, but he is twitchy enough to potentially move over to left. And I think that he would give them a great presence on that offensive line that they're going to need to shore up for Russell Wilson, or if they are playing Justin Fields, like whoever is playing, they're going to need more help on that offensive line. They went after defense and free agency as well, so I definitely think they're going offense here. If they don't go for a tackle, they could go after a wide receiver, but I have them taking a tackle.
They're also, according to Jeremy Fowler, a sneaky team for Cortland Sutton. A team to watch.
I saw that too. Yeah.
So possibly reuniting.
And they just cleared up some cap space.
Yeah, possibly reuniting the best buds of Russell.
God, I would feel so. I'm sorry, but I would feel so bad for Cortland Sutton.
I mean, he would be playing with a player's coach, and I think that
he would, but
and
he needs a quarterback, man.
But
I know.
But he loves Russ, and but I like the idea. At least like the idea that he would be going to a player's coach if that was the case.
That's true.
For Pittsburgh, if there's something like that could possibly get a lot out of him, he would be a player's coach like that. So that puts the Miami Dolphins on the clock, and boy, they need
Miami Dolphins lucked out here, man.
I
see a theme coming.
It does feel like a theme, doesn't it? But I think and if anybody that has been listening to the stream or even kind of following along with me on social media, I've been making this comparison every once in a while, but I will actually tease it after I make this selection, because it feels just, and it's actually a scary combination when you actually think about it. So when you actually look at just the overall, situation, they don't take Jared Verse. They could. They could to kind of maybe keep it in the local city, but actually the Miami Dolphins will take Laiatu Latu from the University of UCLA. Now, why do I say that? Because they have a Jalen Phillips there, and if you have two freaky pass rushers like
Bradley Chubb,
opposite of Bradley Chubb, that is a very scary combination, because here's Latu, where his story compares so favorably to Phillips.
I was going to say that was the trend that I noticed here.
Yeah, it's just he had injuries at UCLA, both Phillips and Latu. They were both asked to retire early from football at the University of UCLA. The only thing that's different is Phillips transferred to Miami, right? Or maybe vice versa. But he was asked to transfer to, or he transferred over to UCLA or Miami. I'm getting mixed up. But yeah, it's just, I just think that the comparisons just are great. And I think that for Latu in the building,
he transferred to Florida. It
just makes so much sense, because if there's no person that could even help with his
Miami Hurricanes, but in Florida,
but it can actually help transition his game. Being with that same person, if you will really help his development.
Yeah, I mean, you look at them taking an edge player in the first round, and you say, well, they don't need an edge player because they have Jalen Phillips and they have Bradley Chubb. But both of those players are also coming back from an injury, and yes, they're adding more injury risk on that edge group, but that also just has such a high reward of potentially being just a dominant defensive line that's going to be one of the best pass rushing groups in football. Mm-hmm. I do think if Jazon Newton fell this far, I think he would probably have been their pick, because they lost Christian Wilkins as well, and they need more help on the interior of that line as well. But I do think they still find a way to add somewhere on the defensive line, and taking Latu here, that's such a steal.
Yeah. The Las Vegas Raiders are now on the clock after that trade that they recently just did with the Philadelphia Eagles. And as we said, there's so much speculation of them going Michael Penix Jr. at pick 13, Brandon. But they decide to actually go a much different direction altogether. And maybe if you are a Denver Broncos fan who's in favor of a certain quarterback, you might want to look away. The Las Vegas Raiders actually pull it off, and they take Bo Nix, the quarterback from Oregon. He is actually going to the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean,
this is so insane to me.
Yeah. Bo Nix is heading to Vegas.
But they desperately need a quarterback. They're going to try to go after a quarterback.
They are. It's just my thinking is just I just don't know if they go Knicks. I feel like if they are going to be trading back, it would be for like a Michael Penix Jr., given possibly like where he's slated to go in the draft tomorrow. But I just feel like for the Raiders and everything, like I just don't even know if Knicks even fits the bill of what the Raiders would want.
Oh, it gives them. They need another Bo. They definitely just needed another Bo in that organization after Bo Jackson. And they wanted the other quarterback from the Pacific Northwest in Penix, but they weren't able to get him, so they went with Bo Nix. They still got a Nix, and they still got someone from the Pacific Northwest, and they got another Bo. It fits all three.
So if you are a Raiders fan,
I don't understand this.
Favorite for this pick, you guys got Bo Nix. You guys got your quarterback. And actually, I would not be the least bit surprised if he's starting day one.
Oh, he has to be.
In fact, some people even feel that Nix, to a certain degree, could be the one that actually starts right away in terms of and actually plays quite well.
I mean, yes, the NCAA leading most games started in college football. He's the most experienced player in this draft by far.
Yeah. So now that puts the New England Patriots on the clock.
Patriots back on the clock here, baby.
Back on the clock with pick 23.
I talked about it earlier. I talked about how bad this offense is, how much I need to continue to build on this offense. That's why I took that trade with Minnesota and went down and got 2 first-round picks. My pass catchers are disgusting. My entire offense is offensive. I was able to get Olu Fashanu. I can get a tackle. And now I have some options for some other players on offense. And the urge to take a wide receiver here was very strong. And I almost went with Ladd McConkey. I was like 2 inches away from it. But I'm giving them Adonai Mitchell from Texas. Mitchell is just so stupidly talented. I know there's been I have seen some rumors that people took him off their draft board. I can't find why. I know there were some slight off the field concerns, but I don't think it was anything crazy. I need to look into this more. But AD Mitchell has the talent and the attitude to be the wide receiver 1 for the New England Patriots. They really haven't had a wide receiver 1 since Julian Edelman. That's kind of insane to think about. That is literally their last wide receiver 1. Obviously Gronk, but that's different. That's their kryptonite. They cannot draft wide receivers. Bill Belichick is gone, and his curse hopefully ends here. And I'm going to give them Adonai Mitchell. I was so close to giving them Ladd McConkey. You guys don't even understand.
I love his. I love the comparison for CeeDee Lamb for him.
Yeah,
because and that's about his ceiling. When we talk about it, it's about his ceiling. Because the catch that is just so etched into my brain, it was the catch against Washington in the playoff, where he contorts his body and on that catch for the touchdown. And look, if there is a few games you should certainly look at if you want to talk about ceiling for Adonai Mitchell, it's that game against the Washington Huskies in the playoff. But turn on that Alabama game when he played against them, and you'll understand possibly why maybe people are a bit soft on, on Kool-Aid and Terry.
Yeah, he reminds me of smaller DK Metcalf.
He is. Yeah, it's just. I think if there is a wide receiver version of Chop Robinson in this class,
that's a good one too.
If there's a wide receiver version of Chop Robinson in this class, it would be Adonai Mitchell. Just because of ceiling. Because I think that Latu and Robinson just overall are the highest ceiling of the edge group. I think if Mitchell goes to the right team, you will see his ceiling be reached, maybe in a year, maybe even 2 years.
I think he's probably going to need to put on a bit more muscle too, but just the tantalizing ceiling of that weapon in your offense is you can't pass it up.
Yeah.
Even though you still need a quarterback, you got a tackle, you got a wide receiver. You're getting there.
That puts the Dallas Cowboys on the clock, which, by the way, did you see the news that broke today?
About the Cowboys?
About a possible reunion with a certain running back.
Not at all. What?
Apparently, Ezekiel Elliott was visiting the facility today. Their running back room is... It's interesting.
Is he a free agent?
He is a free agent.
He is a free agent. I didn't even know that. I thought he went somewhere.
Yeah. But to me...
I did not see that at all. That's funny.
But the Dallas Cowboys, this particular pick, much like Dallas Turner, I feel if you're making a bet on a certain selection in the NFL draft, this feels like that kind of pick. The Cowboys, they love their offensive line. They love building inside and out. That is one of the things, at least, that you can definitively say about the Cowboys, even before Dak for a little bit. But they love building inside out. They had one of the strongest and best offensive lines.
They lost 6 offensive linemen in March.
Yeah. And it was just riddled with injuries. But if there's one that could be the anchor of it all, would be Jackson Powers Johnson. Now, granted, I'm not a huge fan when it comes to Jackson Powers Johnson going to the Dallas Cowboys. I think that just overall, I'm not a huge fan necessarily of taking a center high per se in the first round. But that said, though, I did find it interesting that the safest of all picks, aside from offensive tackles or guards,
I saw that,
is a center.
That was at pick 1, I thought, wasn't it?
I just thought it meant like in general, but he's the best center in the class. Like, he blocked for Bo Nix. In fact, I think some people have even felt that if the Broncos wanted to address center, go get Jackson Powers Johnson, then maybe if Nix was there in the second round, you pair him up with him. Maybe people were forgetting a little bit, that maybe Alex Forsythe was in the building, but yeah, he's an anchor. It's exactly what he is. He would be an anchor for the Cowboys and that offensive line. I think they even moved on from Tyler Biadasz.
Biadasz, yeah, he went to Washington.
Yeah. So Shane Carter, friend of the show, we need to get you on here at some point. If you're listening, Jackson Powers Johnson, if you're a fan of that, is headed to the Dallas Cowboys.
That's a very Dallas Cowboys pick.
Yeah, it really does kind of scream that.
Yeah. Okay. This is Matty again. All right. So Green Bay is on the clock. Green Bay, actually, I don't really know. I've seen so many people mock cornerbacks to them, and I'm not sure why. Like, their biggest need to me by far is on the offensive line. I mean, they don't have to. Like, I wouldn't say it's a need, but they definitely need. Like, they could use some help there. David Bakhtiari is gone. They lost a tackle, and they lost a guard in John Runyon this offseason. And again, thankfully, they're in the right class to replace some of those players. Green Bay is going to be, first of all, I think Green Bay is going to be scary. Like, Josh Jacobs is coming in to replace Aaron Jones. I'm going to give them someone that can help them shore up that offensive line. And Green Bay is going to continue to show that they're the luckiest fan base in the world because their team never has a bad quarterback, and Jordan Love just seems to be the guy again. It's kind of insane. But Matty has them taking.
Okay, so let's cue the music.
Amarius Mims from Georgia. This is about where I would probably be okay with Amarius Mims going. I think a lot of the times I'd seen people mock him a lot higher than this, and I thought that was a bit of a reach. Like, his sample size is really small. He's barely played much in college, but when he did play, he was really, really good. He's definitely going to be more of a project, but we talked about it earlier. Offensive line is pretty much their biggest and only need. And you have to protect Jordan Love at all costs if he's going to continue to prove that they can't miss on quarterbacks, and I just hate them for it. So they're just going to sit here and take probably the best tackle available, and they're going to make out like bandits. And Green Bay is just, I don't know how they do it. They can't keep getting away with this.
And now Tampa is on the clock, and
That's me.
Yeah, Tampa's on the clock, and well, they definitely have a lot of needs. They lost their offensive coordinator to the Carolina Panthers, Dave Canales.
Mm-hmm.
They did bring back Baker Mayfield.
They kept Mike Evans.
And they kept Mike Evans. They were able to keep him in. However, Brandon, where is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going?
Well, they lost Devin White and they lost Shaq Barrett. So you have to see them taking either a linebacker or an inside linebacker or outside linebacker at some point in this class. They just, again, happen to sit here and kind of luck out. I talked about them losing Shaq Barrett, so that edge is a need for them, and they're going to take probably one of the steals, I would say, of the first round, in my opinion.
At this point, yes.
They're getting Jared Verse from Florida State. Jared Verse stays in Florida. They get a local kid, and he's going to come in and be an elite edge player for them. This is a steal. You shouldn't be able to get him at 26.
You want to talk value?
I want him in Denver, honestly. He's so good.
Yeah, you want to talk about value. People every once in a while will talk about value like in the later rounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is value.
It's value in the first round.
It's value in the first round. I think if you were to ask me my preference between Verse and Latu, I don't know what my preference would necessarily be overall. I think Latu does have the higher ceiling, but Verse he screams almost like a Bradley Chubbish pick. You know what I mean? Like that kind of player. The size, he's really good in the run game. Like he has that dog mentality that you want in an edge player. Like, right? And so I think that like he adds a presence to the room that, they really didn't. They had at one point with Shaq Barrett. You bring him to the room, you put him with a Vita Vea, he's gonna cook. Like
Vita Vea and Jared Verse on that line is gonna be disgusting.
Yeah.
He honestly he kind of does remind me of Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb, what was the thing that people said about him all the time coming out of college? He has a nonstop motor. His motor doesn't quit. He doesn't quit on the play. And Jared Verse is the exact same way. He just massive, explosive, super strong. Doesn't stop until he gets his guy and takes him down. Jared, that's going to be a disgusting defensive line.
That puts the Arizona
the only
Cardinals.
downside of him is he's not as good in the run game.
Puts the Arizona Cardinals on the clock. They took Rome Odunze with their first pick. They don't really necessarily need to go back to wide receiver. They could. They lost a fair decent amount of wide receivers. They didn't just lose Hollywood Brown, but they also included Rondale Moore in a trade that apparently was a fleece for the Atlanta Falcons. So Rondale Moore is also headed to the Atlanta Falcons with Darnell Mooney and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Falcons are loaded, man. So where are we going with this Arizona Cardinals pick? Brandon, let's kind of talk this one out. I'll make the pick, but let's kind of talk this out.
So I feel like at this point, Arizona obviously has gotten their player earlier in the draft when they were able to still somehow take, like after the Tennessee trade, they're still able to get a good wide receiver. Now they need help probably in a few different places, but they have. We talk about how badly the Falcons have been at getting pressure and sacks in the last 10 years. Last year specifically, Arizona was 29th in the NFL in their pass rush. They desperately also need help on that line, just like Tampa does. And Matty has them taking a guy that's a bit of a spicy pick, but honestly, it doesn't surprise me. Actually, it's not that, like, you look at it and you think about it, and it's not actually that spicy.
I mean, when you talk about players that could potentially slide into the first round,
They're taking Chop Robinson.
Chop
in
Robinson
Penn State.
over over Isaac, the other Penn State edge rusher. Like it's he's fun. I mean, for one, he has a pass rusher name. Like if there's a player that, if you will, has like the pass rusher name, it would be Chop Robinson without question.
Oh, that's an elite all-time name. Speaking of, there is a cornerback in this draft class named Storm Duck.
Isn't that incredible?
I have nothing else to say about that. No, Chop Robinson, I think he was like, 9.7 relative athletic score or something. He's just an absolute freak. He's a monster. I think if you can get him in round 2, he's going to be a steal. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he goes in the late round 1. And Cardinals, again, they kind of have needed that pass rush after losing Watt. And Chop Robinson gives them some pass rush.
All right, now this puts the Buffalo Bills on the clock, and they recently just traded Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans to help out a fellow AFC contending team. And that basically leaves a gaping hole for them to possibly address that wide receiver room. They could have gone with Adonai Mitchell if he lasted here this long, or possibly even traded up. They chose not to. Based on how deep this class is, and frankly, I wouldn't even be surprised if this if they actually don't address multiple different wide receivers. I don't want to say they kind of go the route of the Green Bay Packers, but I would be surprised if they take a wide receiver, then another wide receiver, and possibly a third wide receiver in this class, and just really revamp that room after losing Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs in one off season. And just truly make it that room or their room, if you will. So it's make no bones about it. The Buffalo Bills will address a wide receiver here. The question is who. I will say this: I think that the wide receiver here, if they're going to be making a move like this, I feel like is also to be in spite of also a team that is also in that division, or not division, but in that conference. And they also want to continue to one up that particular team in that conference. And I'll tell you what, I actually love the fit of possibly a Xavier Worthy in Buffalo. How incredible would that be? One, Xavier Worthy, I feel, is not just a speed threat, but like he's definitely, there's 1,000% a guy that can take the top off, like the top off. I probably should have cued the music. The Bills select Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver from Texas. He had the 4.21. They need a wide receiver. I think they could have gone maybe a little bit more physical wide receiver here.
Adonai Mitchell wasn't available.
But Adonai Mitchell, again, wasn't available. But again, I love just the overall fit of a guy like Worthy with that arm talent of Josh Allen to take the top off of defense. And especially if maybe they want to go to more speed, right? And you got like James Cook and Worthy. Like that actually is a really nice little young trio, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those Texas wide receiver boys are something. But no, they are 100%. They have to take a wide receiver. Probably at this pick. Depends on who slides there, but Xavier Worthy, that would be not even surprising. You might be right, honestly, about that.
Yeah. Now you are on the clock here with the Detroit Lions, and there's a few players that do actually scream.
There's some players that Dan Campbell was biting some kneecaps to run up to the podium to draft.
Yeah, he actually could trade up for this player. Let's be
fair. Honestly, he might. And don't worry, I saw it in the chat, but your concerns about a certain player will be resolved here in a moment, because I have them somehow having yet another elite defensive player fall to them, just like Brian Branch did. Again, they can't keep getting away with it, but in this offseason, Detroit had to release Cam Sutton, their cornerback, because of some pretty serious off the field issues. So cornerback becomes one of their top needs. They definitely also need a pass rusher to kind of pair on that line, but they cannot possibly pass up the ability to take Cooper DeJean from Iowa. He's just sitting there for him. He screams Lions to me, and having the versatility of Cooper DeJean, who can play so many different positions, and he's a chess piece in the secondary. You put him with Brian Branch, that's going to be an elite duo. That's going to be scary.
He also would be paired up with another fellow Iowa Hawk on that defense, Jack Campbell.
Yeah.
So it just makes you wonder. And I really didn't think about it this way, but it makes you wonder. They love, at least with this last draft, they love them some Iowa Hawkeyes.
They love Iowa.
So I would not be surprised if a guy like Cooper DeJean is very, very much on that board. And frankly,
that's a steal.
I said it before. When the Broncos were, me and Brandon actually said it. If the Broncos are in interest of taking a corner, there's really only one corner, ideally, that I guess you could say love, but that I actually love in this class.
Cooper DeJean would be the one corner we could take in the first round, and I wouldn't drink bleach.
Right, exactly. Might drink bleach. We should preface this. Might drink bleach because we know that the might is always the real MVP of this whole situation. But yeah, Cooper DeJean, very flexible, very versatile corner. You said it. He can play some safety. He can play some corner, and also
he was almost the star position at Iowa.
Yeah, and let's also not throw this in. Forget to throw this in here either. The kickoff rules. The kickoff rules are fun now, to where DeJean actually could go above a guy like a Terrion Arnold or a Kool-Aid McKinstry, which is certainly with the way that it went here, is that he went above a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry. So I love the idea of DeJean.
I think DeJean's better than McKinstry, to be honest with you.
I agree with you. But I think that, I love the idea with him, Detroit. And boy, we talk about value. We talk about value with Jared Verse going to Tampa Bay. DeJean.
This is the steal of the first round.
Yeah. This is the value, the steal, the player that you actually could maybe even make the case that could be a Pro Bowler day one.
Oh, easily. The Lions are going to be so fun if this happens. Now, they're already fun, but they're going to be even more fun.
This puts the Baltimore Ravens on the clock. Now, the Baltimore Ravens are fun, because now that you do add a guy like a Derrick Henry, you add a wide receiver last year was Zay Flowers, who may be the shiftiest wide receiver in the entire NFL. Frankly, if there is a wide receiver of the ceiling of a guy like an Antonio Brown, wide receiver, not person, wide receiver, it's Zay Flowers. But the one thing that is truly missing from this team, and Brandon, can I actually make a subtle change? Am I allowed to make a subtle change?
Are you changing your pick? Fine.
No, we never made.
Oh, change it. Do it.
No, we never made any changes up to this point. So why stop now?
No,
anyway,
you can do it. Do it. What were you going to change to?
No, I actually really liked the pick. Now after last night. All right. So anyway, they need a opposite wide receiver. They need a receiver opposite of Zay that's not necessarily the same, right? Actually, no, I'm going to change it. Dang it. No, I can't change it because of what happens. Anyway, they need a physical wide receiver. They need a big-bodied wide receiver.
I really want to know who you were trying to change it to.
Yeah.
Who did you want to take?
I wanted to take Xavier Legette.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But for the chat, who did you actually pick?
But for the chat, I actually do wonder how much of the stock with this particular player, given everything that happened in the college football season, everything that happened in, the year, I very much can see this being a possibility to where He even actually comes and he's a Baltimore Raven because they need that physical presence, that big-bodied wide receiver. So what better person to add to the room than Keon Coleman, wide receiver from Florida State? The other one that I was debating was Ladd McConkey because of his connection to the offensive coordinator there with the Baltimore Ravens. That was the one that I was kind of debating. But Keon Coleman going to the Ravens, I think I just kind of like looking at it though. I love this fit actually because they need that physical presence guy. You know, they need a player that, you know, I know it seems like they re-signed Rashad Bateman, but they definitely do need that physical presence, you know, wide receiver that's opposite of Zay. Zay probably is your wide receiver one, but I mean, Keon Coleman is a guy that I think that you can, you know, he's your Courtland Sutton, right? If they're not going to be necessarily acquiring a guy like a Courtland Sutton, Keon Coleman is younger. He's, you know, he's a guy that you can possibly even rely on those 50-50 balls. And you've officially got a weapon now. You've officially got Mark Andrews, Keon Coleman, Isaiah Likely too, that very, you know, who could be in a tight end one on some teams, right? So Keon Coleman to the Baltimore Ravens. Actually, the more I kind of talk myself into it, I really do like that pick.
Keon Coleman is definitely interesting to me. I don't see him going later than the second round, but that's a very Ravens pick at 30.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I kind of kept it because it does kind of scream Ravens pick.
That's pretty Ravens. That's so Raven. I had to say it. Oh God. I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize for that. All right. So the San Francisco 49ers are on the clock for Matty.
Yeah. And now I will say this particular player has been rising up boards. This particular player is actually rising up boards. And I actually, obviously it's pick 30.
31.
It's 31. And Matty has had some really good picks in this mock draft. I will say that.
This might be my favorite. I'm not gonna lie.
You kind of know where I was going with it. This actually might be my favorite pick. And actually it does, if it lasts this long.
Wow.
If it lasts this long, it screams 49ers pick. It actually
This
does.
is a very 49ers pick. Yeah. So the 49ers, the thing with the 49ers is that their interior offensive line kind of needs some work. They have John Feliciano at right guard and Jake Brendel at center, who are both over 30. They need to kind of find out some future plan there to continue their dominance of having a great offensive line. And they're going to get a guy who can play pretty much any position in that interior of the offensive line. And I think this is going to be a great fit. And that guy is a Graham Barton from Duke. Obviously also the highest rated player remaining. Graham Barton is obviously right now he's at Duke. He's a left tackle. The issue with Graham Barton is he has short arms. He has arms that are under 33 inches, and he's been projected to be more of an interior lineman in the NFL. That seems to be kind of where that line is drawn, is if your arms are under 33 inches, you're kind of just going to play inside where it doesn't matter that you don't have as much length. But I don't think that's going to be a bad thing for him. He could play probably any of those positions on the interior of the offensive line for the 49ers and gives them a guy that they can develop a bit more and also be able to throw in if Feliciano or Brendel get injured or they need to replace either of them, because again, they are both over 30. So Graham Barton is going to San Francisco, and that's actually, I like that pick.
That leaves us now with the Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. The next era, if you will, of the New England Patriots dynasty.
Why did I get both Denver AFC West opponent picks?
I don't know.
whatever. Yeah. So, all right, this was actually a surprisingly hard pick to make. Because obviously the elephant in the room is that they need a wide receiver. Yavi had the kind of running joke that they didn't really have any last year, and their one good one is missing some games and might end up in jail, and honestly probably should be in jail in Rashee Rice. So wide receiver is obviously a glaring need. I'm actually incredibly horrified that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to take all of my favorite players in this draft because they all happen to line up with their needs. But they also need a left tackle. So I was very close to, unfortunately, having to taking another tackle in this mock draft. But I don't really see one that's still available that I like and would want to take. Maybe Tyler Guyton, maybe. Yeah. But he's a right tackle, but he could probably play left tackle. But I'm not going to do that. Jordan Morgan is, unfortunately, like, he screams Chiefs to me. Like, the Chiefs are. I love Jordan Morgan. I want Jordan Morgan so bad in Denver. Yeah, he's just the Chiefs are going to take him.
That's a second round.
I also almost went with a wide receiver here that I also want in Ladd McConkey because, unfortunately, it just makes sense. They're going to take all my favorite players, but I ended up going in a slightly different direction.
Yeah, a slightly different direction, indeed.
Okay, so they need both of those positions. They need a left tackle and they need a wide receiver, but they also traded L'Jarius Sneed to the Titans, and cornerback is now going to become a pretty big hole for them. They could have taken Ladd McConkey, but this is a very good wide receiver class, and they can probably find someone deeper in this class that is just chock full of wide receivers, and they could probably, again, take a left tackle in Jordan Morgan in round 2, and I'm going to hit it. I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid. We're going to take Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's just an incredibly physical, solid outside corner. He only gave up 1 touchdown and 482 coverage snaps last year at Alabama. He also has some ability as a return player, like a return man in special teams. I kind of hate it because he's a good corner, and I don't want to give the Chiefs a good player. I'm just scared that they're going to take all my favorite players. They're going to take Ladd McConkey. They're going to take Jordan Morgan. If they take both of those players and then they take Kyrie Jackson, I'm done. It's over.
I love the fact that you brought up Kyrie Jackson because you knew I was, especially because I texted you last.
So I gave them Kool-Aid McKinstry so they don't take Kyrie Jackson. But no, I mean, this actually makes sense. Yeah. If I'm thinking about it again, I probably would go back and give them Ladd McConkey. I think they would probably take a wide receiver. I think they would want to take a left tackle. If left tackle falls to them, they're probably going to take them there. They might even take Jordan Morgan 32, and I'm going to hate myself. But I gave them Kool-Aid McKinstry, and I don't know. I think Ray, I can't tell if he just hates the pick or he doesn't like he went to the Chiefs.
No, he was just more about like kind of like looking into the future, like because he was at the Chiefs pick, and so he's like, oh man, corner Kool-Aid is out there. They're probably going to go Kool-Aid, and
they're drinking the Kool-Aid.
And sure enough, why I didn't get a chance to ask you about this last night because obviously, one, we were tired, we wanted sleep, and we were just so focused on other things. But what made you go with Kool-Aid versus Nate Wiggins, who's on the board also?
I thought about Nate Wiggins. To me, Kool-Aid McKinstry, the main reason I went with him, I think he's been kind of underrated as a corner. I think Nate Wiggins is right around there, but Nate Wiggins to me is more of the he's kind of more of the shifty, lanky, like fast playmaking corner. Where like he's taller and slimmer, whereas Kool-Aid McKinstry is more of like the tall, physical guy. That I just think that with the loss of L'Jarius Sneed, they're going to need kind of that tone set. L'Jarius Sneed kind of was their tone setter in the secondary at the cornerback position. And being able to take someone like Kool-Aid who can go in there and attack the run, get downhill, and be just an incredibly solid, boring player in coverage. Unfortunately, this is the thing with the Alabama defensive backs. We talked about this with when we drafted Pat Surtain. They're boring. It's not even fun to watch because no one throws at them. So that's why with McKinstry, he's just more physical than Nate Wiggins is. But Nate Wiggins, it wouldn't surprise me if they decided to go with Nate Wiggins if they wanted more of the like the jittery playmaker as opposed to like the stalwart just wall that you can put in the backfield who can come down and make good tackles. That's the biggest reason.
And I'm actually, if you're a Denver Broncos fan and you are just catching the stream, we feel sorry for you to a certain degree because you missed out. They took their quarterback. They were able to take their quarterback, and actually, here's how to probably summarize this, Brandon. As chaotic as those first 6 to 7 picks were, or I should say from like 4 to 7, because that's what it was, the range. I actually can see that being a scenario where, if you're a Broncos fan that's joining us, JJ McCarthy actually falling down to that area where you do have a bidding war necessarily if Minnesota stays, or even they trade back, they trade with New England and New England is there. I can see them, having a bidding war at that point with a team like New England. And so I can still see Denver trading up. In fact, you and I talked about it last week. I see this scenario where it's almost the reverse of 2018, where they had a trade in place of trading back with the Buffalo Bills if Bradley Chubb was not there.
Someone falls, yeah.
And Bradley Chubb was there and they took him. It's almost the reverse of this in the sense, well, they could have a trade up in place. And that's one of the reasons why I actually think, as far as a conversation starter, that's actually why, as much as the Zach Wilson stuff made sense from a low risk, high reward move for Zach Wilson, Jets also hold the 10th pick. And if you actually think about it, the 10th pick is also the pick ahead of the Minnesota Vikings, and it could very well be the pick above the New England Patriots if the Vikings actually go forward with the trade. So it's a conversation starter to the point where the Broncos actually are doing a very strong, once again, due diligence in that it's very possible they're still talking about those trade-up scenarios, which is something we've talked about, is that the Zach Wilson move doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything about their draft plans. So if you take a J.J. McCarthy or if you take a Bo Nix, I actually really think that room of J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix with Wilson is a very, very solid young group that you can grow and you can, use as your nucleus, as JJ is your future, but possibly Wilson is your, as your backup there. In fact, the moment you do take a quarterback like JJ McCarthy is the moment you also save money, because you're probably talking about moving on from Jarrett Stidham at that point too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. As it stands now, I think if somehow he falls, that could happen. The Bo Nix smoke just seems to be rising daily. And we've done apparently a lot of work on him. I would be much more okay with him. If I had to guess right now what we do, I think we're the team that the Eagles trade with. I think we trade back. I would be 100% more okay with taking Bo Nix if we trade back. But he seems to be, JJ is a Sean Payton guy, and Bo Nix seems to be the other Sean Payton guy. Mm-hmm. Personally, again, I wouldn't hate it. Personally, what I would do if I couldn't go up and get someone like JJ, or I want Drake May, but I would rather take I'd rather take someone just like a bit later on day 2, or find a way, like again, if we trade down, to take someone in the second round, and I'd probably would go after Radler, maybe Pratt. I'd rather take Radler.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the, or even trading, depending on if the second round Bo Nix stuff is true. If you actually trade with the Philadelphia Eagles and you acquire the 50th or 53rd pick is what they have. Mm-hmm. If you actually, were able to get that pick, you could probably use that, or maybe, Sutton to a degree as far as a trade up scenario. But like maybe you use your second round pick that you have there to trade up, right? You trade up for Bo, and then you're actually talking about a much more palpable situation of Nix and or probably Johnny Newton averse a lot too, right? It's a very entitled, maybe even a tackle, right? I
believe that Ben Albright in his one mock draft he releases every year had us trading down and taking Jared Verse, which I would be for.
And actually, in the Jeremiah mock, he also had the Broncos trading down with Philly but taking Bo Nix at
Yeah.
22, which I could also
way
see.
more okay with.
Which I could also see. So, but what I thought was fascinating.
Let me ask you this question. I'm just curious because I just thought about this. Let's say you trade down and somehow they're both there. Although after what we've heard recently in the trade down, I don't know about it. Would you rather take Michael Penix or Bo Nix? Just personally.
In a trade down.
I don't know if Michael Penix is as much of a Sean Payton fit, but just personally, which one would you rather have?
You're saying in a trade down.
In a trade down.
I don't know if I've ever said it on the stream, but I have said it in our Predominantly Orange chat. Let me just preface it this way. Nix is probably the most perfect fit for Sean.
Right.
But Penix has the higher ceiling. And I think it's, but also I think for Penix is he definitely does throw with anticipation. You want it to be a lot more consistent with his anticipation versus a guy like a Bo Nix, right? Because
here's the thing. Go ahead. Sorry, you go ahead.
Well, but I was going to say, like, the reason why his ceiling is a little bit higher than a guy like Bo is he does have that athleticism. But I think what really kind of tilts you a little bit more for Nix for me, and why I probably would slightly put Nix above Penix, you can't ignore it. Trade downs or not, you can't ignore the obvious, which is he did sustain those 4 injuries. Age is not a problem for me because you're talking about it between.
I think the age is overblown. It's overblown. It's a number.
Yeah, especially this class overall. You're talking about possibly Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, Jaden Daniels, even Jordan Travis, Pratt, and not Pratt. Penix and Nix, and
Rattler.
I mean, what is he, like 22 or something?
Oh, you're talking about the older guys. Yeah.
So I mean, like, just the age overall is just overblown.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the injury stuff, I think, is probably.
I just think in the context of the offense that they ran, of course you're going to see more Bo Nix anticipation. Michael Penix was more of a gunslinger.
That's why I think for me, if you ever see someone reach his ceiling for Penix, I don't know if I've ever told you this for my comparison for him. If I think
people overthink him. Go ahead.
But I'm just saying, like, my comparison for him, if he hits the ceiling, is a left-handed Matt Stafford.
This is gonna give horror flashbacks. You know who else had a ceiling of that? I would say it was Matt Stafford. Drew Lock.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Matt Stafford. I love Matt Stafford so much. I will die on this hill. He is the most underrated quarterback in NFL history. So I would be overjoyed if that was what Michael Penix turned into. Michael Penix is.
Do you somewhat agree with that, though?
Yeah. No, I do. Personally, I would rather take Michael Penix. I think Bo Nix is a better fit. But I would rather take Michael Penix. Even with the age stuff is stupid, even with the injury history. The only other thing with Penix is, like, obviously that roster was disgusting. Like, just insane. But that's not his fault. He made the best of it. I know how I would be concerned. I'd be concerned if he wasn't good and he had those weapons. But some of the throws that he makes is just, it's stupid. You want to watch a fucking, sorry for the language here, but you want to watch a fun Broncos game finally against the Chiefs. Michael Penix versus Patrick Mahomes would be so much fun. Especially if Penix. Maybe it's a smoke screen. It's a huge smoke screen. Everyone thinks we want Bo Nix. We want Michael Penix. Couldn't that be? Because, well, think about it. If the Raider stuff is true, like, because here's my thinking in terms of, I know we're going a little bit long, and a lot of that reason is because of the draft stuff that we did, the first round mock, which we will post the screen grab of that mock on our Twitter handle and everything. But I've been kind of thinking about this, and I haven't necessarily even said it on the stream yet as of this point. So James Palmer was recently hired on by DNVR. He has phenomenal work. He's a friend of the show.
He's been on a few times. Or not hired, but he does work for DNVR.
Yeah, I saw that.
But DNVR is also on a very pro Penix theme lately, the DNVR team. And I wonder if maybe it's just something that internally you're looking at it from the standpoint of maybe this Penix stuff is real. Like this Penix stuff is real. Because I just feel like Palmer is so much into the know,
Palmer is very in the know. Here's the other thing. Just all the smoke of Bo Nix, though. Sean Payton doesn't telegraph his picks. Right. That's his thing. He's so close to the vest. Like, that's why I'm surprised that there's so much obvious smoke.
And I think one of the reasons why, to bring it back to Bo and Penix, why I would be very quickly sold on Penix versus Nix is that ceiling. Because if you're in a trade back situation, that ceiling, I probably would tend more to your ceiling at that point in a trade back versus possible fit. And again, if you are talking trade back situations, if there's a class to do it and accumulate picks, this is the class to do it.
My thing here is you have to find a way to get a second round pick. The second round in this class is going to be disgusting. There's players that we didn't just pick that I'm shocked are on the board. I'm surprised Nate Wiggins is on the board.
Yeah. I mean,
Conky's on the board.
I mean, I was kind of surprised to a degree. Troy Franklin's
on the board. Yeah.
Troy wasn't a pick even with the Chiefs. So, I mean, that
could happen. Wouldn't surprise me.
And that can. But it's going to be a fun time. And as we're wrapping up, I know we did our caller shot on 5280. I actually believe, I know I did the prediction of JJ McCarthy. But I think it's JJ McCarthy in the trade up, Bo Nix in the trade back. And so I'm
agreeing with that, but I want the Michael Penix sleeper to be a thing.
Yeah, but I will tell you though, if the Giants do not take a quarterback and JJ McCarthy's not taken, then you're talking about a scenario where the Broncos have a legitimate chance to take JJ. So if I say JJ
someone's going to fall. It happens every year.
But so again, my prediction is it will be JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix. But if I had to settle and make the prediction, I say it's Bo Nix because of the trade down.
I think that's more likely.
Yeah. Are you sticking to your prediction?
I don't even remember what my prediction was.
Go well. Okay. In that vein,
what was my prediction? Did I say Jared Verse? Was that my prediction?
Maybe.
I mean, I would take it.
Go ahead.
I agree. I fully agree. 100%. I think it's either JJ if he slides a bit and we can trade up a little bit, or I think we trade back. I would not be surprised with Bo Nix. Would I like it? I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I'd rather take Penix.
It's far more enjoyable.
Sean Payton's fooling us all.
It's far more enjoyable though when you trade back and you actually take your quarterback and you have the capital to work with. So
I don't know how much you would put whatever value you want on this. Chris Sims has him as his number 3 quarterback. Bo Nix.
And Drake May is.
I mean, I know Chris Sims, but
yeah,
I don't. I mean, not that I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Again, we want to say thank you guys so much for hopping on the first round mock draft. The draft is here tomorrow. We've made it.
It's at the same time as it's going to be happening at the same time as the Nuggets game. I hate it.
Yeah. So picture-in-picture will be a thing. I will actually be on a flight to Nebraska. I actually might miss a vast majority of the first round. But I'm really looking forward to this. We can finally tie a bow possibly on all of this quarterback controversy of who they'll take, who they will not take. Oh, tie a
God, please no. I'm sorry. I didn't say it. You didn't hear me.
Tie a bow. But who knows? The Broncos could nix all of this and take JJ.
Or the other Knicks.
I thought it was funny, by the way, real quick. I thought it was funny what I tweeted like a few days ago or yesterday, like that the Broncos' next quarterback will have Knicks in their name.
Oh, I saw that.
And a lot of people assumed, and I was actually talking about Bo, when if you're actually smart and you actually can learn how to read, I hate to say it like that, but Penix exists, like. Penix exists. So anyway, thank you guys so much for hopping on. It was a fun mock draft. Again, we will share it on our Twitter handles. And frankly, Brandon has the picture. He'll probably share it on his Twitter handle. It was actually a great first round mock. It was chaos in the top, but fun in the back. For Brandon, myself, and from everybody in the chat, there was so many people that were commenting here tonight. Glenn, I see Devin in the chat here, Balbani earlier. I saw Graham. And
we did see a Graham.
We did see a Graham sighting. The Hunt Show was in here. Obviously, Landon was in there.
Glenn, thank you.
So many people in the chat. We want to say thank you. Make sure you like and subscribe to the MHRT Network. And we want to say thank you guys so much again for enjoying the Manly Broncos podcast. We certainly love being a part of the MHRT Network. They have a vast number of shows, and with it being playoff season, there will be a neighborhood. There will be neighborhood shows given the playoff games and everything. So there, aside from neighborhood during Bronco game days, there's a neighborhood during the playoff season. So make sure you tune into that. Again, we want to say, hey, thank you guys again. We love you guys, and hopefully you guys enjoy the NFL draft tomorrow, and the Broncos hopefully can get that quarterback position solved.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.